Do you like what you're seeing? Well, you come to the right place, as I present you with a current motherboard coming from Gigabyte, known as the X870E Aero X3D wood. Alright, cut the marketing gimmick. In fact, this board was so beautiful when I do the B-roll, so this come into my mind just to voice over this item. Now, before I begin with the in-depth of this motherboard, I'd like to thank Gigabyte to have provided this unit for me to share with everyone, and also to Tech Dynamic to have done the arrangement on the delivery. Now, I like what Gigabyte is doing. This motherboard is making use of recycled stuff. As you can see, the imprint is on a recycled board. Now, inside the board, these are all the accessory, where you are provided with a set of SATA cables, one right angle and one straight, followed by additional M.2 studs, or should I say rubber pads, just to lift up your M.2. This bag which contains the G connector, whereby you connect your front I/O, I should say the front switch, the power switch, the reset switch, and etc. The Wi-Fi antenna, the user guide and such. And this is a small token appreciation design of the board, where you have this keychain which says Aero, and of course the motherboard itself. I can't get my eyes off this motherboard. It is so gorgeous. Take a look at all the aesthetic on the board itself. There is a touch of grey, and with the chunky silver aluminium casting, and with lines and such, and a touch of wood. Now, this two panel here is not wood. It is in fact plastic, but they have crafted it to look so real, like wood. See? My goodness. Now, this is a ATX form factor motherboard. It has 8-layer PCB with 2-ounce copper traces. And as for the measurement, from the top to the bottom, this is at 244mm, and from the side to side, this is at 305mm. And as for the thickness of the side VRM, starting from the rear, this is at 45mm, together with the backplate, which I'll show you later. And as for the side VRM, this is at 35mm. So if I were to count just the board, not the backplate, this is at 40mm, and this is at 30mm. And as mentioned to you, see, the backplate is so nice. And this backplate not only function to form the rigidity of the PCB, there are thermal pads inside that touches the plate along with the top VRM and the rear VRM. Nice touch. This will definitely dissipate a lot of heat. Now, as mentioned to you, the aesthetic is so fantastic. They have break out the traditional method of the pin stack on the VRM heatsink. In fact, it's chunky aluminium, see? And it has a unique design. Same goes to the top VRM, where this fins protruding out. This will dissipate heat. Same goes to here. Same goes to the rear. See? And overall, when I look at the motherboard itself, right, there are designs with this, I believe this is PU leather with the word Aero. Now, when I look at it this way, right, it reminds me of a diary. Not really into wood, but a diary that have touch of wood, okay, making use of the pillar as wood. And this is the flaps. And of course, this has a function where you release this over here, so you just turn. So when you turn, right, you can just pull this out. Just pull this out. And this is the top section of the M.2 heatsink. It's very chunky. Alright. And for this, the bottom section, same thing, just push the lever over here and you pull it out. Nicely done. and you have the thermal pad on the top section of the M.2 shield. So just bring you to a closer look. This is plastic, as mentioned to you, but it gives you the essence of wood. The logo, this is copper color with the thread. Very nicely done. I really like this board. Aesthetic is beautiful. No nonsense on all the patterns and such. It's seriously very sleek. I would definitely build this board if I can find a case for it. The power face of this board is 16 plus 2 plus 2, and amazingly all these power face are of 60M, and they are using high grade MOSFET, which is Dr.Mos. Now since this board is catered for X3D Turbo mode, I shall see how well this board handle a 9950 X3D. We shall see. Right at the center, this is the 1718 socket where it cater AMD processor of 9000 series, 8000 series, and 7000 series. Right at the bottom, you have 4 DIMM slot, and these are catered only for DDR5 and have a max capacity of 256 gig, and it runs in dual channel and having a max mega transfer of 9000. Now there are a total of 3 PCI-E slots, whereby the first 2 slots is controlled by the processor, and this is controlled by the chipset. Else, the first and second, right, the lanes, though is 16, the speed of the first slot is at X16, second is at X8, and the last, which is controlled by the chipset, this is X4. Now, if you populate only the graphic card, having all this empty, this will run at X16 speed. If you populate both, which is the first slot and the second slot, both will share lane, as in like the speed will be X8, X8. If you populate all, now this will be X8, this will be X8, and this will retain as X4. For the locking and removal mechanism of the PCIe slot, only the top slot has this button over here. So when you clip your graphic card in, right, this will lock in place. Now take note on this lever here. So when you want to release, right, press this button and this will drop. This is unlocked. Then you'll be able to pull your graphic card out. Now as for the bottom 2 PCIe slot, unfortunately there's no button for it. So if you plug in your additional sound card or your capture card, right, once you plug it in, this will lock in place. And to remove off, you will need to dig your hands to it and to press it down. And this is in release, then you will be able to remove. Now as for the M.2, earlier on I showed you how easy it is to remove. Right now I'm just going to do the reverse. For the top slot, okay, this is the lever. When you press this down, right, you can just pull out the whole top M.2 shield. To place it back, just align this. This is magnetic, and you can see there's a groove, matches over here. So you mesh to the back first. Once you have done this, right, you can just push it in and you'll be locked in place. Now hope that I can show you the lever over here. Okay, I'm just going to zoom in. See, to remove, you will need to push this, and when you push this, right, you can pull this PU leather and it's removed. Right, it's pretty straightforward. Now for the bottom section, okay, for the bottom section, again at the back, it is with magnet, and you align with the groove. Okay, and then you just put it in, and take a look at this section over here. To remove, just press it down, holding on to this, leave it up, and the whole piece will be removed. Now for the thermal pad on the M.2, for the top section, you have both at the top and at the bottom. If you are plugging in a single side M.2, you don't have to remove the tape at the bottom, whereby this is a support. Now do note that this is spring. It's with a suspension. Well thought from Gigabyte, whereby you will not put too much pressure or force when you sandwich the top to the bottom where you have this M.2, because sometimes when it's too much, right, your M.2 might bend. So having to say this, right, for single-sided, do not remove this. You can place your M.2, remove the top plate, the top thermal pad tape, and to place it in. If double-sided, just remove the whole thing, which this support comes on top of the tape. Remove this and remove this, and you plug in place. Again, a cushion format. Else for the bottom section, right, you only have the top with thermal pad, and coming with this board, it has the rubber stud, so you can just paste just to support the M.2 up. And all this locking mechanism on the M.2, right, okay, let me just zoom in, with this is toolless. So be it whether you mount the armor shield, the top and the bottom, or to lock the M.2, all these are toolless. Well done. Now for the arrangement on the M.2, there are a total of 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, where the first and fourth is controlled by the CPU, and both of these are Gen 5 backward compatible, and both are with a speed of X4. Now do take note, if you populate both with Gen 5 drive running at X4 speed, if you intend to make use of the rear USB port, which is USB type, version 4, the fourth M.2 will not run at X4 speed. It will run at X2. Now for the rest of the M.2, the second slot and the third slot, this is from the chipset, and both are Gen 4 at a speed of X4, and there are no lane sharing on these two M.2. Whatever I mentioned earlier regarding about the PCI-E lane speed and the lane sharing inclusive of the M.2, this only apply to AMD processor of 9000 series and 7000 series. If you are using 8000 series, I've not covered. If you want to know more info, head down to their official website and check out the lane allocation and the lane share and speed. Now this board has a onboard audio which make use of the Realtek ALC 1212, and this is 7.1 high definition surround sound. Now as for the connectivity, starting from the left, this is your front I/O audio, which is meant for your microphone and headphone. Next you have total of two 5V 3-pin ARGB connector, which is here and here. Then in between, this is a demo LED. Meaning say when you plug a 5V current, right, the LED will lit up on the rear I/O and on the underskirt over here. Now next you have a 12V RGB. Now do not confuse with the ARGB and RGB. RGB are not addressable and they are 12V. Else for ARGB, they are 5V and it's 3-pin. Next you have this two socket, the ESPI DP. Now this is meant for the external device to do some error checking and such, which we do not use. The TPM module, followed by 3 4-pin PWM fan headers. Okay, there are one over here, one over here, one over here. Next you have two USB 2.0 socket, followed by a front USB 3.2 Type A socket. In fact, there are a total of two, one over here, one over here. So if you have case of having two front USB Type A connection, right, total of 4, you can plug these two. Else you can choose either to plug here or to plug here. Now this is for the front I/O. As mentioned to you, there is a G connect. Make use of that to plug your case connection, then plug it over here. Now right at the top, probably I turn over here. Right at the top, okay, probably zoom in. This is the clear CMOS pin. When you short it, it will reset all your settings in UEFI to default. And over here, which indicate RST, you can plug a switch over here. This is programmable. Things like reset, to turn off the LED on the rear, which is this, and the underskirt. Or you can set it as a BIOS safe mode. 2 additional 4-pin PWM fan connector. These are right angle. Next, as mentioned, this is the front IO 3.2 Type A port. Total of 4 SATA connection. Now, for the 4 SATA connection point, if you populate all 4 with hard disk together with all the M.2, right, there are no lane sharing. You can just operate them all together. Now, next you have this, which says DP Sense, okay, with this dip switch. This is for you to plug a sensor to detect the noise that is, channeling the air within the case itself. So this is an optional thing where you can purchase the sensor over here to detect the noise, so that it will adjust the RPM of your fans, be it the case fan, your radiator fans and such. Next, you have the Type C connection point, where this has a transfer rate of 20 gig. Followed by this port, this is a HDMI port, and this is to support internal internal HDMI display. It can be 6-inch, 7-inch, or 7-inch. 8-inch. And this will only project 1080p at 30 Hz. Now, right at the top, you have total of 4 pin over here. 2 pin each for sensor probe. Then you say you can buy additional sensor probe, plug to this, and you can sense the temperature on the component that you wanted. A 24-pin socket, followed by a debug LED digital display. Now, besides this, right, there are LED indication over here that says boot, DRAM, BGA, and CPU. Now, the thing is that these LEDs over here, right, they don't have color code, meaning to say it's only red. So when it flashes, let's say for example, there's error on DRAM, right, it will be in red. And if it's error on the BGA, it's in red too. So do be careful about this. I would take note on the digital LED, and for a fast glance, right, probably you need to magnify this and to indicate if there is a red. You can't boot the system and there is a red LED lit over here, right? You have to magnify this and to detect which is the error, which is either BGA, DRAM, boot, or the CPU. Now, coming to the top, another 3-pin 5V ARGB, addressable ARGB connector. Total of 3 4-pin PWM fan headers, where the first one is meant for your pump, followed by a CPU underscore fan. This is whereby it's the master fan for your radiator fans and your air cooler fans. So make sure you plug to this. Else, for the CPU op, now you can plug this to the CPU op too. This is controllable in UEFI, but I would advise to plug on the CPU underscore fan, because this will detect whether you have fans mounted on your air cooler or your radiator, where you don't get this error message if you don't plug it in. Okay. And last but not least, 2 8-pin EPS connector. This is at the rear, where you have the HDMI socket version 2.1, and this makes use of the integrated graphic on your processor, and it's version 2.1. It has a projection of 4K but at 60 Hz. Now, there are a total of 4 buttons over here. On the extreme left, you have the power button and the reset switch. This is useful when you want to test your board outside the case. Next, you have these 2 buttons over here, where the top is the clear CMOS and the bottom is the Q Flash Plus. Now, for this function to work, you will need to have the firmware loaded on your USB 2.0 FAT32 drive and to plug to here where it says BIOS. For more information how to do the BIOS flashback, look in my description where it takes you to a channel from Ronin Wow. It does guide you on how to do the BIOS flashback. I mean, you're making use of the Q flash button to flash your BIOS without the processor and without the RAMs populated on this system, or should I say motherboard. There are a total of 8 USB Type A port, where the red ones are indication of generation 2 and has a transfer rate of 10 gig. Now, these are version 3.2, alright. Transfer rate 10 gig. Else, for the blue ones, This is also 3.2 but generation 1, having a transfer rate of 5 gig. At the bottom, you have total of 3 USB Type-C port, whereby the top 2, these are USB 4 and has a transfer rate of 40 gig. And as mentioned to you, if you are using this right, the M.2 on the 4th slot, which controlled by the CPU, it will run at X2, and this will share the X2 over here. So both will run on X2. And over here, this is another Type-C, whereby it's version 3.2 generation 2 times 2, where it has a transfer rate of 20 gig. Right at the top, you have 2 5 gig LAN port. And over here, this is the Wi-Fi socket, where it is Wi-Fi 7. And this adapter is making use of the MediaTek 7927, a true Wi-Fi 7 adapter that has a bandwidth channel of 320 MHz. And over here, these are all the audio, where you have the line out for your speaker, microphone, and the SPDI F out. Now, as for the antenna socket, this is the antenna. Okay, it has a proprietary connector. So when you plug it in, right, you just push it in. And when you plug it out, just pull it out. And do be careful with this antenna. Do not break it. Once you break it, right, you can't purchase it as in, like, you know, it's not very convenient to purchase it based on the fact that it's a proprietary connector. So when you break it, right, you will need to contact to Gigabyte and probably purchase off from them. Now, besides the Wi-Fi, right, this is also Bluetooth. Bluetooth equipped. Just make sure that when you want to use Bluetooth, right, connect to your antenna. And this is version 5.4 for Bluetooth. Once you have set up your system properly and you've installed a fresh copy of Windows 11, and when you boot it up on your lower right taskbar, you will see this pop up. Just install it. In fact, this is the Gigabyte Control Center. So once you have installed it, you will get this interface. Now, the first thing is not to play with it, but to update all the drivers, as all the device in your device manager, right, see, there might be unknown and such. So it will be best that you can just go to this last section of the icon where it says Update Center. When you click on it, right, all the drivers will be scanned and will be listed. And this is how it looks like. See? So make sure to install all the drivers that's necessary. And some of the application you might not need it, just like myself. See? If you do not need it, just uncheck it. Okay, things that you need, then you install. So all the drivers will be installed like what I've done over here. Then once this is done, right, make sure you reboot your system. Now, back to this interface. Besides the driver and software update, you can also do the software BIOS update. But I would strongly not to go through this route, based on the fact that if you were to, you know, have a power surge, right, since this is in Windows environment, so imagine that there is a power surge or there's a sudden breakdown on your electricity, you might prick your board. So otherwise, for BIOS update, make use of the BIOS flashback. That will be more advisable. Now, this is how the interface will look like. You will get this. I will show you some of the functions, which is pretty neat. Starting off with the ARGB effects. Okay, as you can see over here, right, you can sync all this. See, listed over here. See this? All these are the ARGB headers on your motherboard. So if you do connect your fans or you connect a ARGB strips and such, right, you can control all this. Now there's two portions which you can't control, which is on the board itself, which is the rear I/O and at the chipset area. This will always be, I would say, tinted yellow, but you can turn them off, not an issue. See, this is off, this is on. So if you want to turn it on, right, you can just select it and turn it on. Okay, so these are the brief instruction on this, how to make use of this Gigabyte Control Center. And with the ARGB Fusion, right, you can actually do all this. Now, next thing, a very neat feature. Back to here, I'll go to the Wi-Fi compass. Now, I already done this when I unplug the Wi-Fi antenna off from the motherboard. And this is a very good tool. As you can see here, I've detected. Now, it depends on where you place your Wi-Fi antenna. You can do a scan. Best is actually to have it near your router area. So assuming that this is in fact the location that you first started and you're getting very weak signal, reposition your Wi-Fi antenna, which I've done. Once you've done this right, you can just rescan again. As you can see earlier on, right, it was weak with the minimum of 71 dBm. So right now I've actually plugged back my Wi-Fi antenna. See, I'm getting this. And each step right of this, it will tell you the steps. So it takes some time. So this is whereby the antenna is facing you. You see, orientate the antenna towards you. Then when you click on next, right, you go to the next step. Turn your Wi-Fi antenna to the left. So this is actually the position. Then do a scan. Again, you will detect again. See, it does move, showing you how excellent it is. So these are the stats. It will average out everything once you have completed. Click on next. Next thing is turn this to the back. Okay, there are a total of 5 steps. First of all is to actually tell you the orientation of your antenna. Then the last step is to show you the results, overall results. Now do take note, there are 2 ways of detecting it. I will explain to you what they are. So this is done. Okay, you can continue with the last step, which is turning the antenna to the right, and you start to scan again. So you can, reposition where you want to place your Wi-Fi antenna, and once you get a very strong signal, you can stop. And looking at this chart over here, right? Okay, later on I will show you. Okay, where it says result, this is after the 4th scan. It will show you this overall result. Okay, and as illustrated over here, right, it's rated as strongly recommended. So once you have this, right, you can just leave it. Do not touch your Wi-Fi antenna, and this will be the average that we'll be getting, the minimum and the maximum, and it's excellent. Now, what's the difference between the continuous detection and this 4D detection? Now, I prefer to use the 4D detection, whereby I can, turn the Wi-Fi direction as in like manually. Else for this, right, you need to stationary place the antenna, the Wi-Fi antenna to one place, and you will take 5 minutes to scan, which is time consuming. But of course, this will give you a wider range because it scans in a ohmi direction of the Wi-Fi antenna that you don't have to rotate. So some of you might want to make use of this to detect, but do take note, it will take 5 minutes for the whole scanning and detection, as written over here. Okay, so do be mindful. Now to test the speed on the 2 5GB LAN port, inclusive of the Wi-Fi connection. Now, the Wi-Fi is disabled. The second LAN port, which is 5GB, is unplugged, leaving only this. This is plugged. So let's try and see the speed. This is local server. I should be getting around 4.6, 4.7. Yep, they check out very well since this is local server, so there shouldn't be any issues. Same goes to the upload. And as you can see, right, the ping rate is it's very low, which is good because this is local. Now both check out very well. I will switch to overseas servers. Now for overseas servers, right, it still depends on which server that provide 10GB or 5GB and such. So I know for a fact that there is this from, let's see, Maxus, Cyberjaya 192 mouse. The rest, right, I've tested, it doesn't go above 1 gig. So with this, say, right, 192 mouse, I will test on the server. This is overseas in Malaysia, I believe, or maybe in Indonesia. Not too sure where the area is. So I'm getting this speed. So it's pretty alright. 3GB or so. even for the upload, right, it should be around this, this speed. So proven. Okay, see, 4.6, 4.7 upload. So it's proven that this adapter works. Let me just try again. Hopefully this time we'll get a better ping rate. Okay, no, it's hovering around there. Anyway, this does check out for the upload and the download is around there. Okay, it doesn't mean that this adapter cannot, download at this speed. It's just happened that the server over at the other end, right, it's not able to cater that speed. Else, see, I'll upload, because I'm having a 10 gig upload speed and download speed, so definitely it will meet. Okay, right now I'm just going to unplug this and to plug to this. Okay, we have a disconnection over here on the second LAN port. Will take some time to identify. Okay, connected, see? Alright, so I'm just going to test on this local server. As stated over here at Singapore. Again, it's going to be 4.6, 4.7, see? Without any issues. And for the upload, same thing. So this proven that both 5 gig network port is working fine. And when I select to overseas, right, as mentioned, it depends on the carrier, whether do they provide such bandwidth. Okay, let me just grab Max's Cyberjaya. You should get around 3 gig plus and such, see? It's always the case. Downloading from them, they have limited bandwidth. Else for upload, right, we have more bandwidth compared to them, so they be able to receive our full bandwidth, see? Next, I'll try on the Wi-Fi. Okay, I'll just enable this and I'll unplug this. Okay, select the local server again, the top one. Now, as mentioned to you, right, this is a full Wi-Fi 7. By right, I should be getting about 3 gig plus for the upload and download for local speed. This is local. Ping rate should be good, see? Slightly more compared to the LAN. The LAN is actually 3 milliseconds. Else for Wi-Fi, right, it's normal 5 milliseconds, but it's still good, see? 3.1K, and this should be around the same. So this does check out that this true Wi-Fi 7, which is a 320 megahertz channel bandwidth, right, it does check out pretty well. Now I'm just going to switch server. Okay, probably some be daring enough. I'll try something different, which I've never tried before. Let's try this. Hopefully they have the bandwidth. Now I'm on Wi-Fi and the upload speed. Oh, okay. They do provide the upload speed, which is 3.1. So I'm able to download from them at 3.1 using Wi-Fi. As for upload, okay, this is slightly lower. Probably I would say that over there when they receive, right, the call line is not that great. And looking at the ping is pretty high. Alright, gonna test another server, probably back to Max's. And it's somewhere around here. Okay. Oops. Yep, here we go. It should be having a download of 3K plus, 3 gig plus. See, it does. And probably the upload, right, I would say probably about 2 point something, or maybe more. Let's see how it goes. Okay, for them to download our data, no problem, it's 3.6 gig. For us to download from them, it's 2.5 gig. But anyway, this does check out well that all this port and Wi-Fi adapter, right, it does work. Besides having to detect the strongest signal or where your Wi-Fi antenna is located, you can make use of other features on this Gigabyte control center. You can control the fans, and some of you know that you have to go to the UEFI to trigger all the fan profile and such. Over at this section, this dashboard allows you to do on the go. Meaning to say you can control all the fan headers that you wanted. You can set the different profile, or you can do it manually. And also, if you want to do overclocking, undervolting and such, you can click on performance, and this will give you a warning. Of course, you just click on it. Now when you are using this function, make sure under the Windows security, okay, which is this section, device security, the core isolation, make sure you disable this. Now I know that some of you might say that, hey, this is actually to safeguard, you know, your PC and such. But if you want to use this function, the performance on this dashboard, right, you have to, you know, disable this. And of course, you will need to reboot this before you can make use of this performance over here. So once you've done this, right, as mentioned to you, you can trigger your undervolting and such, which is based on your, you know, based on your processor. These are things that you can set. It's all up to you. Or you can even set your RAMs if they are profile. So these are things that you can do. Besides this, if you want, you know, the system warning, let's say you're running the system and there are certain temperature or voltage that you want the system to prompt you so that you will not continue on to operate. This is where you can set. Right? Now, the next thing I'm going to introduce to you is an application, a very neat function. If you are new to RAM tuning and such, right, you only know to, you know, set it to export profile and that's it. And some other expert or gurus might say that, oh, you do this sub-timing, you do this, etc, etc. Now, those are very daunting. What Gigabyte have provided you, when you download the drivers, there is this application called AI Snatch. This one. Download this, a very neat feature. Let me just show you. So assuming you have downloaded and installed, right, you will get this. Now, before I trigger this, let's witness what's going on with just the export profile. Now this is the RAMs and these are the timings over here. Okay, be it the slot 1 or slot 3, both are the same. See, when I toggle. So I'm just going to do a screenshot on this for you guys to compare what's the difference when I make use of the AI Snatch. Okay, let me just label this properly. This is only export on. Okay, and also at the meantime, I will run either 64 just to show you on the latency. Okay, let me just close this. This is the one. Now this is only export only, right? So you will just read and you will just, you know, show you the stats. So as mentioned, this is only export on UEFI. I have not do any RAM timing and such, and especially for new builders, right, you are not aware how to do the timing and such, the relay, the you know, those kind of advanced RAM timing. That's what I'm trying to say. So by default, these are the ones that you'll be getting by default. I will later show you what happened when I trigger to the AI Snatch. This will take some time. Okay, so take note on the read, write, copy and latency, which I'm going to do a screenshot too, so we can have a comparison. So having to say this, right, should be no time getting the result. Okay, so these are all the timings over here. I will take a screenshot, oops, of this, and also to label this expo only. Okay, do bear with me, alright? This is kind of time consuming, but I just want to show you guys. Now, next thing is I will trigger this application which I shown you, right? You have downloaded and installed. This is called the AI Snatch. Okay, let me just repeat that again in case you're confused. Under the Gigabyte Control Center, when you download the drivers, right, make sure you download this, and this will install on your desktop, which is this. So just launch it, then click on this. Okay, sometimes you'll get a prompt to ask you to deactivate the core integrity. So what you need to do is just to launch this Windows security, come to this device security, the core isolation details. Make sure this is disabled. When you disable this, it will ask you to reboot. So just reboot it. Now I know your concern whereby I say that, hey, this is actually to protect your system and such. But if you want to make use of the AI Snatch, right, to detect the performance of your RAMs and such, right, you have to disable this. So assuming you disable it, you reboot the system, launch this again, and you will have this. Okay, by right it's not detected. So by right, this is the predict results, right, is nothing. I've actually done this run, that's why I dare to show you. So what you need to do, right, is just to recalculate, having the system to calculate the RAM's optimized value. Then we'll say all the values that you see earlier, which is this. Okay, it will configure for you automatically, but this is only just to fetch all the configuration. Once this is done, right, it says mission accomplished. You will be saying over here, predict result accomplished. Okay, apply, it will take you to UEFI. So once you load into UEFI, right, you can disable your expo profile and to make use of this profile, which is being fetched through AI Snatch. It's going to take some time based on the fact that, you know, some readings have been done and from the system populating to the UEFI. So right now it's going to boot into UEFI. Okay, one thing about the UEFI is a very beautiful interface. So later I will talk about the easy mode and the advanced mode right after what I've done on the conclusion. So take note, it's by the end of this whole content. See, this is actually the interface. Beautiful, right? Just to show you a glance, see, this is the easy mode, and this is the advanced mode. Now, as mentioned to you, I've triggered the expo profile, and if you do not run the AI Snack application, right, this will be gray out even if you set this to disable. Okay, because right now it's already been populated, as in like the AI Snatch application have grabbed all the optimized value of your RAMs. Okay, and it depends on individual RAMs, right? I'm not talking about standard RAMs, as in like your RAMs can be 32 gig kit, 64 gig kit and such. It will just, you know, capture what is the best value for your RAMs, and you can trigger over here. See? And please read on the AI boost itself. Once it's detected, it will recommend you which mega transfer should be. For this, right, I know it's 6,000 megahertz, so just select this. Once this is done, right, I will save and to show you what happened. Okay, here we go. Now, for some reason, the response time when you have captioned your profile using the AI Snatch, right, the boot up on the system is pretty fast. I guess all the presets is being verified and to timestamp on your system. That's the reason why the UEFI, right, boot up to Windows, right, is pretty fast. Okay, right now I'm just going to show you what happened here. Now, I'm just going to pull the memory timing just to show you against the only expo profile. Okay, just going to wait for it to load fully. Okay, going to pull this out. Now, this is after the AI boost have been triggered. Okay, just to show you, if I were to put AI Snatch, launch the AI Snatch, right, you'll see that. See, this is applied. Okay, when this is applied, take a look at the timing over here against the timing which I've done the screenshot over here. See, this was Expo and this is AI. Look at the configuration. There are some slight changes on this. So if you feel that these are very daunting, you wouldn't know how to configure, right? Make use of this AI and to trigger. Now I'm just going to launch the either 64 just to show you the latency. Okay, let me just close all this. Now I'm just going to run. Do observe all the read write copy that's actually doing right now. You will gain some speed and to lower down the latency on the memory. So with the AI Snatch, in fact, is helping your system to optimize to the optimal performance, so that you don't have to go and figure, taking your time to do the adjustment and such on the advanced timing. Take a look at the latency from 70 plus, okay, which I'll show you later. Right now it's actually 68.8 nanoseconds, and all these are doing great. And sometimes for the L2 cache, right, it will cache as 2.4 nanoseconds instead of 2.5. Okay, this is right now 2.5 is alright. Now take a look at the L3 cache right now. Okay, let's compare to the previous record, which I have it over here. This one. Okay, now as mentioned to you over here, okay, let me just try to pull this over. With the AI Snatch, this is what happened. Take a look at the read write copy only on using Expo profile. This is what you're getting, and the latency is 77.7. Else, once you have done the AI boost, right, see, it even reads faster, and the latency drop from 77 all the way to 68. It's about, I would say, around 10 or 9 nanoseconds faster. Then look at the rest, like the L3 cache. See, from 12.2 nanoseconds, it drops down to 11.6 nanoseconds. So this is actually the beauty of AI boost, which is making use of this application, which is the AI Snatch. So this is actually a very good tool whereby you will just snatch. It's like, grab the profile based on the system and you calculate the algorithm of your RAMs and you will just boost. Now the next thing you will need to install is actually this, which I find it useful too. Now just head to the official website. There is one application which I will also recommend you to use if you are using a X3D. The X3D processor, which right now I'm using the 9950 X3D. So when you go to support, right, there is this utility. Click on utility, scroll down and look for this Gigabyte On5 X3D. And what this does, again, when you install, it will appear on the lower taskbar where you can see only X3D, then the version. Now what does this do? I know that some of you are very daunting, as in you wouldn't want to configure your PBO2 and such. You just want to play games straight. Now this is the help for you. It's a one-click solution. So once this is over here, right, you can do a right click where it says disable. You can click here and these are the profile. If you are using normal without any tweaks and such, right, you can just set it disable. If you want it just to run standard, you can just run as standard. Now for the max performance, and okay, it's covering everything. Okay, for the max, for the max performance, as you can see, and the extreme gaming, right, what it means is if you are playing games, you want to have fast FPS and such, you just select this extreme gaming. Okay, you ask you to restart the system, which I'm not going to do that. So when you trigger to extreme gaming, right, this will enhance the performance on the system through AI. right? Or if you're doing production work, you're doing let's say content creation and such, right? You can set it to max performance. So once you've done this max performance, right, the system will cater max performance on workload instead of gaming. So this is actually what it meant. Based on recommendation, I would advise you to install the application that enable the extreme gaming or the max performance. If you do not install the application, you will have to come to UEFI. Okay, this is under advanced mode, where you have this X3D Turbo mode. So when you click on this, right, you have standard, max performance, extreme gaming, or disable. Or even in easy mode, over here, when you click on this, you can set this. But the troublesome thing is that you need to come to UEFI to trigger this. So on the go, it's better to have it on Windows, whereby, you know, as and when you want it, you just trigger the profile that you wanted. Now to illustrate to you the RAM training cycle. If you are migrating from Intel to AM5 platform or AM3 to AM5 platform, this is expected. Do not expect it when you piece up the whole system and you will put into UEFI. For AM5 platform, this is the characteristic whereby you will verify your RAMs and your system. So that is known as the RAM cycle timing. Now, I will be pressing the start button. Take note on the digital debug LED over here. It will cycle. And in the meantime, you can take a look at my left top where you see this black screen. That is the screen that is plugged to this system. And on the screen itself, on the lower right, you will see a stopwatch. So the moment when I press the start button and when the debug LED lit up, right, I will press the start button. So this is how it takes to verify the RAMs and such before it go into UEFI. And do note, this is only for the very first time when you set up the system. Once it's been verified, and when you do reboot or even start from cold start, it will be very fast to UEFI. Alright, just to show you, here we go. At this period of time, do not shut down the machine. It will take some time. Don't assume that, you know, it's 40 and such. When the LED stated 15, right, it means that your RAMs are being verified. It's like they are physical RAMs, and they start to do the calculation and such, verifying not only your RAMs, your system, and the rest of your component. Now, it also depends on your RAMs. The higher capacity that you have, the longer you will take. For this 32 gig kit, I would to predict it's around 2 minutes. Okay, so if you have higher RAMs like 64 gig, 96 gig, 128, or maybe up to 256, right, it will take longer. I know that for a fact. For 128 gig kit, it's going to take about 4 to 5 minutes. So as you can see on my left top corner, right, the clock is cycling. See, this is 1 minute. So as mentioned, during this period of time, do not shut down the machine. Do not clear CMOS and such. If you keep repeating and repeating, right, you're definitely going to damage your processor. So please do not do anything at this moment. Just let it cycle. And this is healthy. Now, there's something about the LED over here which I think it should be different color, as in like the LED lights. But somehow this board, right, all are in red. So it's kind of hard to read which fault it is in the event of troubleshooting. So probably this will be a good idea for Gigabyte to set it to different colors, like red for, you know, boot, amber for RAMs and such. Okay, it should be in no time right now. It will boot into UEFI. As I mentioned, it's about 2 minutes. See? Okay, let's see. Yep, takes about 1 minute 58 seconds to boot into BIOS. So right now it's been verified. Okay, we'll just click based on the fact that everything is being resetted. Now, for this, right, I'm just going to shut this machine down and to boot up again. Okay, as you have witnessed that it takes, for the very first time, 1 minute 58 seconds. I'm just going to reset this counter. I'm just going to set it off. Okay, this is off. Okay, probably I'll just do this so that you have a proper reading. Okay, this is the screen itself. Now I'm just gonna press the button again and take note on the LED, I mean the digital LED. So this is actually after verifying, and here we go. So as I mentioned to you, right, once it's been verified and everything for the very first time, so subsequently when you reboot the system or you boot it from cold start, it will be faster. It will not be 2 minutes that long. Probably I would say, see, it booted up. See, it takes about 25 seconds to boot up. Earlier on, I've showed you the Gigabyte control center whereby it controls the ARGB effect. As mentioned to you, right, this board itself, the rear I/O and the beneath silhouette of this chipset heatsink, right, they are like things. These are not changeable, as in like different colors or such. You can only have one fixed color, which is dim yellow. But this doesn't matter because it just adds the elegance of the motherboard. And of course, on the control center, right, you can turn off this light if you do not want to. Now, I'm just going to test the thermal on this board. As you can see here, right, my temperature is ranging 30.6 degrees Celsius to 31 degrees Celsius. For the thermal test, these are the components which I'll be using. Starting off with the processor, which is a Ryzen 9 9950 X3D. And of course, this motherboard. And as for the RAMs, will be a 32GB kit from King Bang. And these are the cache latency with the mega transfer and the voltage. Now, in UEFI, instead of triggering the Expo profile, I made use of what Gigabyte have provided, which is the AI Snatch application. With that application, it pulls the configuration and the figures, which will optimize this RAM. And having those data, I port in UEFI, which I've shown you on AI push on. Okay, so instead of Expo profile, I made use of the AI configuration that's determined from the application. Next, again, deliberately want to test out how well the M.2 heatsink, which is located at the top, okay, the individual heatsink, which is pretty chunky. I made use of a Gen 5 M.2, which is coming from Byron, which is the X570. Now, I deliberately made use of a very old liquid cooler known as the Arctic Liquid Freezer 2 360. And most of the time, this liquid cooler have been used many times, and with the processor, right, be it a 9950 X3D or a 9950X, be it on motherboard or such, or you know, testing on some other stuff, it's always hovering around 78 to 80 degrees Celsius with this processor and with all the configuration which is equal. So just want to test how well this board dissipates heat. And of course, on the Liquid Freezer 2 360, right, I've removed off the original fans. Instead, I've changed out to high static pressure fans, which are the 320mm 9-deck Gentle Typhoon. And as for PPO2 limits is using default on this processor, which you can see over here. And this you will witness later on the benchmark itself, where I deliberately pull out the Ryzen Master Stat to show you. And as for curve optimizer, since there are two stacked, for the first set, I've set it to -15. Second set, I set it to -10. For curve shaper, I made use of 3 frequency, mid frequency, high frequency, and max frequency. And all these frequency each have its own temperature. As you can see, low, mid, and high temperature on the mid frequency and the rest. So I've standardized all the magnitude. Mid frequency with all temperature at -15. High frequency, all temperature at -10. Max frequency at -0.5. So as I run, okay, let me just pull. As I run, by the way, this is actually recorded for the last 10 minutes. So I did a 30 minutes run, then 5 minutes idle, and then 10 minutes. Now, things to take note, I'm making use of the Cinebench R23 application together with Firma running on the background. And why am I using this? Based on the fact that I don't use a discrete graphic card, I just want to stress the processor together with the integrated graphic so that it will generate more heat. So I just want to see what's the impact surrounding the area of the 17-18 socket where the processor sits. things like the impact on the side VRM, the rear VRM, the front DDR5 slots, and your M.2. So these are the stats that you will see, like the CPU temperature, the clock speed. By the way, this clock speed is the average of all the 16 core. Okay, if you want to know how often that it will stay peak, right, take a look at the readings on Ryzen Master. And as mentioned to you, why I pull this Ryzen Master, just to show you the PPT, the TDC, and the EDC. They are default of this processor, okay, which I'm talking about the PBO2 limits. Now, so as I run, nothing much, all seems to be okay. The system one, in fact, is the motherboard, okay, hovering on this temperature, the VRM, the RAMs, the okay, this is actually the M.2 which I mentioned about, which is Gen 5. It does have two different readings. One is for the NAND, the other one for the controller. And then bottom over here is the X870E chipset. There are two. So as mentioned, right, in the first few minutes, nothing much. So I'm just going to pull all the way to the last 3 minutes. Okay, somewhere around here. So as I run, right, take a look. Maybe I should start from the beginning around the 8 minute or so. See? So it's hovering around 72 degrees Celsius at the beginning, nothing much. But as I run this to the last 3 minutes, right, take a look what happened. Oops, overshot. Okay, over here. See, it only increased by 1 degree Celsius. And mind you, this is a old liquid cooler freezer too. Okay, and when I look at the frequency over here, right, throughout the whole run, right, it's pretty consistent. Though there are dips, it's pretty far away, pretty alright. And you will see jagged, but this jagged is in fact pulling the frequency. Because when I look at the peak frequency, right, it's hovering around 5.07 to 5.9 consistently without any issue. And to verify this, take a look at these readings over here. See, all 5 and above. And the average which I've taken from here, right, is also 5 gigahertz. This is fantastic because most of the time when I test on motherboards, right, it always hover around 4.8 or 4.9. It never hit average of 5. Where else this board, right, is able to cater. And speaking of which, look at the temperature. The motherboard temperature, 39 degrees Celsius. I'm in room temperature 30.6 degrees Celsius, and this was conducted in an open bench. Okay, by right, it should not be around there. It should be around 41 or 42, still acceptable. But I mean, not say this is not acceptable, but this is running way too cool. And for the VRM, now, especially for the VRM, I was skeptic about the real VRM, whereby it has a plastic wood strip, and right in front of it, there is a plastic translucent word that says Aero. So this will definitely accumulate heat. So there I'm thinking, scratching my head, saying that, probably this VRM will heat up pretty fast, probably about 70 degrees Celsius or such. To my surprise, it's shown over here. Okay, this is the last 3 minutes. Okay, before I go run out of time, let me just pull back to the last 2 minutes. Okay, just let it run. So I was quite shocked looking at the VRM temperature, 51 degrees Celsius with all the aesthetic decoration at the rear. No any issue, it still can cool. And my temperature on the DDR5 RAMs, not even 50. And on top of which, testing the M.2 heatsink that comes with the motherboard. Take a look. Fantastic. And the chipset, wonderful. Never hit 55 degrees Celsius. And as mentioned to you, this is very consistent and it's pulling. And take a look, it's still, hovering very strong. Now, coming to the last few minutes, or should I say the last few seconds where it has the, okay, just let it run. See, the score, 43K145. Most of the time, the max I can go with this processor on other motherboards, I can go only up to 42K800 or 600. But this, I can sustain at 43K. What are my thoughts about this Gigabyte X870E Aero X3D wood? I guess by now you guys should know that I really truly enjoy how this board looks like. It's so elegant. As mentioned to you, it resembles of a diary, where you have the diary frame right at the side with wood, and these are the flaps. In fact, it really looks like a diary. See? And the structure of it, in fact, all check out very well. It's well constructed. And I was actually skeptic with the plastic wood frame over here, together with the the translucent logo that says Aero, and with the word creative starts here. Now with this block over here, right, I thought that the cooling might have some issues, but it turned out that when I run the benchmark and such, right, my goodness, this is the only board that have my Arctic liquid freezer 2 to run at 73 to 74 degrees Celsius. So this is how capable this board is in cooling. Not only this, check out well with the VRM Heatsink, the M.2 and such. Well done. And best part is that the structure is very sturdy. It has a very nice backplate. See? I mean, I'm not too sure about the MSRP, but if it is cheap, I would definitely get this, based on the fact that it not only performs, but it looks so fantastically gorgeous. Now besides this, right, there are mechanisms which are very good, which the PCI-E slot, the first two slots are cast with metal frame, except for the last slot. But the only bummer is that the release button, right, I hope that the first slot and the second slot have this button, but somehow this does not have it, but doesn't matter. Now something I forgot to mention, okay, let me just show you. For the first M.2 slot and the fourth M.2 slot, okay, these two, as I mentioned, they are Gen 5. Now a very clever way to actually design it this way, whereby if let's say you populate two M.2, right, having the first slot M.2 not an issue. You won't hinder, as in like, you won't have the GPU to blow hot air onto here, because this is actually a backplate, so you dissipate hot air together with the heatsink up to the top, and leaving the gap over here where let's say you have a three slot GPU, your fourth M.2, or should I say the second Gen 5 M.2, will not be in the way. The ARGB card, right, that pushes the warm air through the heatsink to the bottom on your motherboard and to the top, right, it will not hit the M.2 at this slot. So it's a ingenious design to have it this way. Else for the Gen 4, right, it doesn't generate much heat, so even if you put the graphic card, right, it will not impact that much. Well done. And best part, all are toolless, fantastically done. And also to the fact, all the connection point, fantastic, full of it. You have 240 gig, 120 gig inclusive of the front type C, which is also 20 gig, and all this USB type A with 10 gig transfer rate and 5 gig transfer rate. Well done. And all these buttons, right, are very functionable. You can place this outside the case, and if you want to test your board with your system, right, you can just use the power button and the reset switch. And the clear CMOS is over here, and you have a Q flash. Now for the clear CMOS, right, one thing I like about them is that they have include the jumper clear CMOS over here, so it makes things easier. Either you press from the back or press over here. Now speaking of which, I don't really like the battery arrangement over here. Probably I guess it's actually the space, cause it exposes half. If I am to take this out, right, I have to remove the whole heatsink over here. And looking at the back, maybe a problem to actually just remove two screws. I have to remove the whole back plate because of the alignment of the chipset. So I got to, you know, remove the whole backplate, and to remove this chipset, I mean the heatsink, in order for me to take out the battery and to replace the battery. So this is one flaws. Other than that, I don't have much bad thing about this board. In fact, you know, fantastic. It looks good, elegant, sleek, and well designed, inclusive of the thermal performance and such. It exceeds all my expectation. I wouldn't know what to say about this, and especially for the lane sharing, right? The only affected part is on the fourth M.2 slot, whereby if you want to use the USB 4 Type C port, right, this will share lane with your fourth slot, which will go to X2. So be whether you put a Gen 5 M.2 or a Gen 4 M.2, right, once you make use of the USB 4 port, this will be X2, and this is the only, you know, only thing that is lane sharing. Other than that, okay, sorry, not only this lane sharing, but if you want to populate 2 graphic card, okay, this will be shared too. But I don't think anybody will do that. Most likely you will plug your graphic card over here, and for the audio card and such, right, or even a 10 gig NIC, right, you can port to the last slot, where this is also another exceptional excellent thing, which is running on X4. Well done. And also to the point where you populated all the 4 SATA port, which I already tested on my 2.5 inch SSD, 2 of which it doesn't share lane with the rest of the M.2, which is good. And surprisingly, this is only 60M choke for all the phases, which is 16 plus 2 plus 2. Such a low amperage, I mean sufficient amperage to run my 9950X and able to exceed. In fact, some of the it put this to some of the X870E boards, right, to shame. Whereby this not only cater the, you know, evenly distribute lane and the choke that is able to sustain a 9950X, and also coming to a point where the M.2, right, this is suspended. I mean, it's as a suspension, but I just hope that they can include this on the lower section too, so that make it equal. And the armor shield is pretty hefty. See, nicely done. Now with this said, besides this, there are functions like the X3D mode, which can trigger whether you want to play extreme games or having to do content creation. And not only this, things like the AI Snap to optimize your RAMs. Speaking about the optimization, it's just one click to set your RAMs. Not only this, you can set your processor, whether in gaming mode or in workload. And best part on the RAMs itself, I like this locking mechanism. It's two-sided, so when you slot your RAMs, right, it's evenly. When you remove, you just press both and you will come off. You know, instead of having one side coming off and pull the other side, right, that might warn off the center notch. This is a very good mechanism. Now overall, who should use this board? I would say that this board is meant for content creation and for more mature adult, because of the aesthetic and such, all very nicely executed. And why do I say it's meant for content creators? Based on the fact there are tons of ports. Okay, you can do transfer 40 gig and such, and you can even project out with portable, you know, LCD, or should I say IPS panel, with just the Type C connection. Well done. And you can actually use all this function outside the case, as in like the power on and the reset. I would say that this is beautifully done. I really like the aesthetic of it. And not only this, it does perform. Design, performance, low on consumption, which is 60 choke, and yet able to sustain my, you know, 9950X 3D. Well done. I seriously, if this board is cheap, I will definitely get it and to build. And I make sure that, you know, to find a nice case for this. And to be honest with you out there, all the cases, right, that are in white and have wood accent, right, I will not choose them. Unless it's from Okinos or from N-Tech. They really treat the wood nicely. Not like, you know, one patch is so ugly. So with this say, I thank Gigabyte to provide this board, a loan unit for me to share with everyone. And to Tech Dynamic to have done the arrangement on the delivery. Now, for those of you actually new to my channel, welcome to my channel. If you like my content, do remember to subscribe and to click on the notification bell button. And I do wish everyone to help me this big favor. In order for my channel to grow, right, I hope that you click on the like button so that, you know, more people will view. Now, don't go away, as at the end there'll be all the BIOS, as in the easy mode and the advanced mode. With this said, I'd like to thank everyone. Take care. Goodbye. See ya. A very gorgeous UEFI dashboard which blends in the theme together with the motherboard. As you can see, it's very soothing. Doesn't glare your eyes. I just simply do not like white interface, but this is not white interface. It's kind of creamy gray kind of look. Very nice. Or should I say a very wood feel kind of stuff. Now, there are two modes in UEFI, easy mode and advanced mode. Starting off the easy mode, as there are subcategory over here, starting with favorites. This is whereby functions that you often use, you can bookmark them and you will be ported in favorites, which I'll show you later. Load default. In the event if you have set all the configuration and you just want to reset everything, you can just click on this button. Save and exit, I don't have to mention. This is whereby all the configuration you have done, you're happy with it, you can save and exit and boot to Windows. Q flash, this is where you update the firmware of your motherboard. Okay, the software style. I would encourage you not to use this, based on the fact that if you use this, right, in the event if you have power breakage or shortage or even a power surge, halfway during the software updating on the firmware, if it breaks, right, you might prick the board. Make use of the Q flash button at the rear. Okay, check out on your instruction manual, or you can refer to my description, whereby there's this gentleman, Ronin Wow. He did a very good job on how to do a BIOS flashback using the button at the back. Alright, now for SPDIF info, when you click on here, right, it will show you the JDAC info of your RAM kit. See, this is A1, A2 and such. Now besides this, the SPD setup. Okay, you can trigger over here, up to you. Now on this section here, you will see that the motherboard itself, the processor, the BIOS version, the RAMs that you populated in this system, and the ARGISA version. Now at all times, right, make sure you update to the latest ARGISA, as this will help in RAM training cycle and to optimize the performance on your system. At this section over here, you will see the RAM populated, which I told you, the 32 gig kit, and this is where you can set the expo profile and such. Now, if you are using the AI Snatch application in Windows to grab the profile, you can make use of this. Instead of using an expo profile, you can use this. See, this is being populated since it's already been fetched from the AI Snatch application. I can port it over here. If you're not run the AI Snatch application in Windows, right, you can't port the profile over here. And please go according to your manual transfer of your RAMs, which I know that this is actually 6000. Then core tuning, all this, you can play with it. I'm not going to do anything about it because I did try on the high bandwidth support. My RAM just crashed. And as for core tuning, right, this is on auto, which will determine on all your cores to perform at the uppermost, I should say the uppermost frequency. But at all times I will not touch this. Over at the middle section where you have frequency, okay, this is the CPU frequency. You can set manually over here, see, up to you, or even the core ratio and such when you click on it. Now one thing about the button, take a look, see, they have blend in such a way, pretty nice. Probably I'll click on this to show you, see, the wood feel. Okay, back to where I was. As mentioned, you can set the frequency yourself. CPU temperature, you can set it, I mean on your fans itself, right? You can control the speed and such, up to you. Okay, this is just a one click. Then the voltage you can set to manual setting, a fixed voltage on your CPU. Then memory frequency, you can set the profile, enable or disable. Then for the temperature, system temperature, you can set the fans also. Now for CPU temperature and the system temperature, right, normally I will not use this. I will use the Smart Fan 6, which you press either this or F6. So you can set all the temperature accordingly. Okay, I'm not going to go through everything. So you can set to normal, full speed, or manual. Manual, when you set this, right, you'll be able to tune down here. Okay, if not, you can just follow the profile, normal, full speed, silent and such. Right, and all these are the headers on the, on the motherboard itself. You can set one by one. See? Now, over here it will show you what you have populated as in like your SSD, M.2, your SATA, your 3.5-inch hard disk. It will show you over here. And over at the right where you see boot sequence, right? Now, I deliberately plug a USB thumb drive just to show you. Imagine you have dual boot, as in like the first one is Windows, the second one is Linux. Now, when you save this, right, when it boot, it will boot to Windows. If you want it to boot to Linux, come to UEFI at this section, click on it, you just drag and drop. See, having the priority as this, right, it will boot to Linux and you will not boot to Windows. If you want to back to Windows, pull and drop, drag and drop. So this will be in Windows. And right at the bottom, a quick access to set your resizable bar for your graphic card. The legacy support on the CSM, which I don't touch. Fast boot, if you want to choose, if you choose to, boot your system fast, you can do this. Then at the top, prefer mode. Now this is on auto. So in the event, let's say you left the UEFI in advanced mode, right, it will remember under auto mode. Else you can set it physically, whether you want to boot into UEFI to be easy mode or advanced mode. Then as for themes, right, now I've tried the grayscale. My system crashed. I have to clear CMOS for some reason. So just leave it as Aero wood, which this is actually a very nice theme. Don't really need to change. Now at the bottom over here that says 80 port display mode. Now this is the digital debug LED. You can set it to sense debug. So once you verify everything and such, right, then when you boot into Windows, you want it to show different temperature, you can set this digital debug, the interface, right, to show the CPU temperature, VRM temperature, system temperature, or even if you want to disable it, totally don't want to see the flash on the digital. Right now I'm just going to leave it this way. Then ERP saving mode, your onboard LAN, which you have two. Now besides all this, there is one very particular which I leave it to the last, which is the build for X3D. If you are populating a X3D processor, you can toggle this mode, which I've shown you. In UEFI, you can toggle the max performance for workload or the extreme gaming mode. Same goes to the application which I showed you earlier. To install that, you can just on the fly in Windows, right, do a right click, select to max performance, which is for content creation and workload and such. If you want to play games, higher FPS and such, right, you can just toggle straight to extreme. Okay, be it over in UEFI or in Windows, you can do this. Date and time, you can click on here and to set. Now right at the top, we have this question mark, the camera and the find and the languages. Starting off with the languages, you can set your languages. Let's say you want Chinese, you can set, see, all you'll be in Chinese character. We'll just set it back to English. And as for the find, right, some of the functions, instead of clicking and such, you can just search for it. Take for example, you want to set precision overdrive. Okay, you can just type precision. See, you'll be listed over here. So you can just toggle over here to do the function. Now as for this camera, right, if you have a USB thumb drive on the motherboard itself, when you press this, right, you will capture the screen on UEFI. Take for example, you want this to be captured, you just press this. Once you press this, right, since I have the thumb drive on it, you can just press on this and you will just save. See, you will capture on the thumb drive. So when you go into Windows, right, you can retrieve back. It will be super solid clear. Right? So as mentioned, let's say you want to have this, you can do another capture again. Okay, it will save into another file. So this is how you do the capture. Now, for this, right, this is where it shows you the shortcut. Take for example, right now I'm using the mouse to click on advanced mode and easy mode. If you click on this, you can press F2 to go advanced mode, and these are the short keys. So you can just press F2, see, advanced mode, press F2 again, easy mode. Next will be the advanced mode. Now with all the subcategory over here, starting from favorites, as mentioned to you, often used function. Take for example on tweaker. Okay, have a look on all this. Okay, these are the ones that is listed over here. So let's say under tweaker, you often use this mode. What you need to do is highlight here and press the insert key. So when you press the insert key, right, there will be a star beside the word disable. Okay, if you press it again, it will disappear. When you press this insert key, right, where you have a star, it will be bookmarked in favorites. See? And if you don't want this, you can just press insert again. Highlight the thing that you don't want, insert. You can do it here, or you can do it here. Okay, this is actually included in favorites. As you can see here, it populate over here. You can delete all from this list, or on the actual ground, just highlight and insert, and this star will be gone. And when you look at favorites, right, see, it's gone. Now coming to tweak or tweaker, all this top section I will not do anything about it. Based on the fact I let it run, but you guys can toggle the frequency and such, like the CPU ratio, the clock frequency and such. Some will even pump to 58 or such. I just leave it as it is, as I wouldn't want to hurt my processor. And as for the X3D mode, again you can toggle over here. Okay, max performance, X3D, I mean extreme gaming, or standard, or disable it totally. And of course you can do this in, as mentioned to you, you can do it in Windows too. So it's up to you. GFX clock frequency, this I will not touch. This is the integrated graphic. Precision boost overdrive. This is whereby you do not want to go into details. You just want to, click and go. You can set over here. Now there's 90, level 1, level 2, level 3, and level 4, all the way to level 5. And 80, same thing, and 70. Now what does this mean? 90 means that you allow the system to go max up to 90 degrees Celsius with all this level. So you can just select and to run. If it crashes, just reduce down and such. Same goes to the 80 degree. Majority will just use 80 degree. I'll advise set to 80 level 3 if you want to. This is actually a lazy way to tune the precision boost overdrive. Okay, or you are very worried about damaging your processor, you can set to 70. It's all up to you. Okay, you gotta play with it. Next will be eco mode. You can enable this to limit the power drawn and such. Advanced CPU setting, just to show you, these are things that you can do. Okay, some of you might even fiddle with the SMT mode, either to disable, to enable, just for gameplay. But I would say that you don't have to use this. Instead, just make use of this. Where is it? This. Okay, just port to extreme game, you're good to go. Now the rest over here, DDR5, auto booster and such, you can set enable or disable, up to you. Normally I'll just leave it auto. The XMP profile, you can, if your RAMs have XMP profile or Expo profile, you can set accordingly. Okay, or best way to do it, use the AI boost, which is making use of the application. You have to make use of the application in Windows, the AI Snap, to grab the optimized configuration and to port over here. Then you'll be able to enable over here. When you enable the Expo AI boost, right, make sure this profile is disabled. Then you can set, and according to your RAMs, the mega transfer speed, core tuning as mentioned to you, you can tune up to you level 1, level 2. You know, these are all auto, just to tune your processor, but I wouldn't use this. System memory multiplier. Now, by default is 4800 for my RAMs. I know that I can set to 6000. Okay, this is actually my RAMs, but I'll just leave it auto, because once you pull either on Expo profile or this Expo AI boost, right, this will automatically configure to your JDEC profile on your RAMs. Now, Infinity Fabric frequency, F clock. If you know your RAMs, you know F clock, you can just set over here. This will speed up in boot up, so that you do not let the motherboard, right, to verify and to, you know, to confirm that it's actually running on that F clock. So when you set this, right, it's like telling, hey, you don't have to search. I'm telling you that I'm using a 200 F clock speed. Next will be this. Now this is 1:1 ratio. I wouldn't know how I explain this. Probably you have to check it out. It's best to run your RAMs at 1:1 ratio. Okay, anything that's higher than 6000, probably you can rerun on the 1:2 ratio. Advanced memory setting. This is what you will show your sub memory timing. For those adventurous, you can set manually, up to you. Alright, and if you are daunting, oh, I will know which is which, what is what. Now, as I mentioned to you, this, the AI boost, making use of the AI Snap, you will just calibrate for you to, you know, calculate the algorithm, and you will plug automatically for you, so you don't have to worry. This is for more challenging, you know, user who want to do the timing and such the manual way. You have the SPD info, which shows you the JDEC as mentioned to you. See, these are the JDEC profile and which RAM is being populated to which DIMM slot. And next you have the SPD setup. Okay, you can configure and to save the profile or to load the profile. This is for advanced user. Normally I will not use. Then the power down enable and such. Okay, memory content restore. Now this is auto, whereby there will be a RAM training cycle, be you update your BIOS or you reset your CMOS and such. But there are some who actually trigger this as disable. You just want to boot your system faster. I would advise not to do this, okay? In fact, it's better to leave it auto. Have the system to determine your RAMs properly before it load into Windows. So this is the advanced setting. Now, at the bottom here, CPU core. This is where you set your B core to fix and such. Next will be the B core SoC. Now this is got to do with the RAMs and your processor. And if you can remember, right, the power phase itself, where you have the +2, that +2 is meant for this, where you can set the voltage. I often like to set this voltage as 1.15 as a start, because by default, right, when you leave it as auto, right, it will pull the voltage up to 1.23, 1.25 and such. I just want to lower down the temperature, so I know that majority of all my RAM setup tester, right, it is able to run at 1.15 volt. Okay, not 1.5. Okay, you're gonna blow your, you're gonna blow your system. It's 1.15. Okay, if this, when I run the Aorus 64 test, right, it fail, right, I'll just pump 1.18. Okay, that's the max. Other than that, I won't touch. You guys can figure with this, up to you. And oops, and you even have advanced voltage setting to manually set each and every one. These are for advanced overclockers. So I'm done with the section on tweaker. Now come to the settings, where you have the power platform, where you set the ERP and such. This you can set. Next will be IO port. Now this is where I will disable the HD audio. Disabling things or devices on the motherboard that you don't use, right, you will speed up the boot up time. And the bifurcation you can set. Normally I'll just set it to auto. Then the switch. Now, as mentioned to you, right, the USB and the M.2 it switches whether you want it to be auto or you just want to set to use on USB. If you set to USB, right, your M.2 you can't use. If you set to M.2, your USB 4 can't use. So take note on this. And these are the resizable bar for your, this section over here, right, this is resizable bar for your integrated for your discrete graphic card. Then the onboard controllers and such, which I don't have to mention. And these are the rest. Utility download configuration, where I show you that first time when you install a fresh copy of Windows 11, right, when you boot up, right, this will trigger for you to install the Gigabyte Control Center. USB configuration, just to show you. Normally these are the things that I will not touch. NVMe configuration. See, you can set whether you want to do is, short test, extended test and such. Up to you. As in, like, to boot up and to do all these tests. But normally I'll just leave it default, won't touch. SATA configuration. So these are the things. Oh, one thing about SATA, right, by default the port is under hot plug, meaning to say at point in time when you load into Windows, right, you can remove the SATA directly without powering down the system, but you will need to eject off from Windows itself. On the lower right hand corner where you see the USB icon, just do a right click and to eject out the SATA before you unplug it. Network stack, this is how it looks like. Then these are the PCI-E 5 controllers, which is meant for your 5 gig Ethernet connection. Okay, this is done. Miscellaneous. Now coming to this RST multi key, I'm showing you earlier at the front, right above the front panel socket. By default, it's actually hardware reset. You can set it to turn off the LEDs. Okay, set it to BIOS mode, meaning to say, in the event, let's say you are in Windows and on Open Bench, right, you just want to straight away go to BIOS, you can just hit that button. But make sure you program over here, or you can boot it in safe mode. And these are the link that you can do, like your PCI-E slot, the 16 lane, you can set to Gen 5. The X8, you can set to, Gen 4 or Gen 5, up to you, and etc. Okay, I'm not going to go everything all in, okay, just to show you. Now the rest, these are things that you can set. Now this is when you're doing benchmark, you just want to have the optimal result. You can enable this on 3D Mark. Then for this, I can't remember what this is for. Let's see. Okay, anyway, this got to do with memory. I cannot remember what's the function, so some of you might enlighten me on this. Then the trust module. Okay, this is done. Next will be AMD CBS. Now this is the place whereby I like to configure, especially when having a 9000 X3D chipset, where I will select this SMU common options, where you have this CPPC dynamic preference call. This is actually do with the core parking and such. So for my workload, I'll set to cache, but majority of you set to driver or set to frequency. Okay, now for cache, right, in fact, is to activate all the cores. As for driver, right, it allows the driver to determine whether you want to use the first 8 core or the the next 8 core, things like that. That is for gaming, so take note on this. Other than that, I do not touch, but these are the things that you can set. Then you have all this. I just go through with you. See, these are the things that you can set. I wouldn't have a clue what these are. Probably I'll need to go in depth. Then DF common options. These are things that you can do. I believe these are meant for IP address and such. UMC common options. Okay. Now, NBO common options. This is where you can configure the graphic card, whether you want it disabled on the integrated graphic or discrete graphic. This is this is integrated, this is discrete, so you can disable this if you want to. So these are things that you can set. FCH common option. Okay, I'm just showing you, I'm not going in depth. Take note on this. SMU, as I showed you before. SOC miscellaneous control. Then you have the PROM 21 chipset. And the new record offset. I have no idea what this is. Next will be system info, where it shows you your system, what kind of processor what kind of, the language itself you can set. Okay, just like having the easy mode, just to set over here, and the time and such. So for advanced mode, right, all in one page. You can set the language, you can set the time date. Okay, then you can view the info of what are the devices that you have plugged in. See, I've only plugged in the M.2, so you can see over here, if you have a discrete graphic card, it will show over here. If you have SATA drive, it will show over here. Then SPD info, see the JTAG of your DIMM slot. Now coming to the theming, as mentioned to you, leave the theme as Aerial Wood. Do not set to grayscale. If you set to grayscale when you reboot, right, maybe to me, okay, this board, it just hang, it doesn't go into grayscale. Probably you can actually try, if you have luck, when you purchase this board, if you have luck going to grayscale, right, probably do a screenshot, share it with me. I'm curious how it looks like. Now as for the 80 port display mode, as mentioned to you, the digital LED, you can set this to show your CPU temperature, your VRM temperature, or your system temperature, either one of them. Okay, if not, just leave it as 80 port code, whereby that will show you the indication of errors, or should I say the RAM training cycle digital numbers. Okay, so this is done on the info. Now for the boot priority, as mentioned to you, on easy mode you can drag and drop. Over here you just click here and you set. Okay, you want to boot to Linux, you can just click here. If you want to boot back to Windows, you just click to here. But every time when you change this, right, you will need to save and reset. All this I don't have to mention, you can have a look. Now, especially for this section over here that says secure boot, if you're playing Valorant, you will need to come to this section here, click here. Instead of standard, you have to set to custom. Okay, and do remember, in the event, let's say you want to reformat your hard disk and you're playing Valorant, And when you're playing there, right, you need this to be custom, right? Make sure before you format your hard disk and to plug in a new fresh OS to it, right? Come over here, set the drive as standard. If not, you're going to have a lot of problem. Okay, this is done. Preferred operation mode. As usual, either you boot in UEFI easy mode or advanced mode. Last but not least, save and exit. All these are self-explained. I don't have to mention.